Okay, guys, I just thought I'd do another quick video that's separate from that last one. So it's the other thing that's cropped up numerous times recently is the concept of fasting, and people have asked me, like, what do you think of it? Blah blah blah. So fasting is like anything else. Fasting has benefits and it has downfalls, and it's ultimately up to you as a person to actually experiment and see what works for you, because what works for one person won't work for someone else. So there's been, I think, a few popular topical fasting discussions recently based on a book that I can't claim to have read, called, I think it's called Fasting Like a Girl. So I don't want to talk much about it because I don't know much about it because I've not read the book, but it's a sort of fasting philosophy. So if you want to read up on it, be my guest, and then you can make some informed decisions about it based on that, or you could even try it and see how you feel on it, because ultimately you have to listen to how things make you feel. There's no point in doing something if actually it's making you feel rubbish. On the contrary, if you're doing something that makes you feel good, then maybe you're onto something, but everyone will respond slightly differently to different things. There's two things I want to cover though in this short video about fasting. The first one is that there is benefits to it. I remember a long time ago, probably before fasting became as when I say popular as it is now, I actually think there's trends. I think things come and go. Like, like probably in a few years, like high fat diets will come back in, and then it'll be like back into like low carbs, and there's just a cyclical nature of these things. But at one point, about a decade ago, fasting was spoken about quite a bit, and I remember, this is purely anecdotal, that there was a girl at the classes who had always worn a sort of support thing for her wrist, and it was something that no matter what she did, couldn't get rid of this wrist pain, to the point where eventually she told me that she was booked in for surgery. There was some issue with it and she was going to get surgery on it, and she didn't really want the surgery, and as a last ditch resort, I think she had 2 months before the surgery, she'd read up some anecdotal evidence about like the way the body can heal itself, particularly in relation to inflammation. Now this is anecdotal, right? So just because this worked for this person doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. And she decided to start fasting, and I think she went on it was like I think it was maybe 18 hours a day. I can't remember, going back 10 years. She did it every day meticulously, and I remember one day about 6 to 8 weeks later, not long before she was due the operation, she came in without this support. And I remember asking her, I remember everything about her, I remember her name, but I won't mention her just because what's the point? She might not want this story told, even though she doesn't actually do the boot camp anymore. Anyway, and she'd said her wrist had completely, like, hugely improved, and she actually went to the surgeon and had a pre-op meeting, and they decided to postpone the surgery. And she explained what she'd been doing, and he wasn't even that surprised. Like, I think he'd been reading up on it a wee bit himself. And he said, I have read a lot of anecdotal stuff about the power of fasting in relation to inflammation, and I'm not overly surprised at what you're telling me. So that was just a purely anecdotal story. And there has been numerous studies done since that show that it can have really positive effects on inflammation in the body and a restorative effect. So there's definitely something in it, in that respect. Is it for everyone? No. So you have to try it to see, and you have to decide why you're doing it as well, because one of the main reasons a lot of people choose to go down the fasting route is for fat loss and weight loss. And this is the one area where I still think it's a bit of a grey area. There's not anywhere near enough science-backed stuff to suggest that fasting has got anything special about it, and it's not got a magical ingredient in regarding to weight loss or fat loss. Now, if you have fasted and you've achieved weight loss, that doesn't mean that there's something scientifically superior about it just because it's like the old N=1, so it must work. It worked for me, so that means it's real. It's not that it's not real as such. It just means ultimately, if you're fasting, what are you doing? You're introducing a barrier. You're creating boundaries for yourself, eating boundaries. So where before, the most common time I think most folk eat and overeat and go for the Maltesers and the chocolate, going by my own personal experience, is at night time when you're watching telly, Netflix, whatever you're watching, have a wee cup of tea. Before you know it, me anyway, I've eaten half a bag of Maltesers because they're quite addictive, so I keep them. I try not to get them bought. So if you've introduced a fasting window though, that you're 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock is your cut off, you're not eating after that time, and then you're not eating again till whenever it's going to be midday the next day, then 16 hours a day or whatever it is, you're suddenly not eating. You've created a boundary, you've restricted yourself to not eat. So that's why it allows for weight loss, because it forces you to eat less food. It's simple as that, really. That's the main reason why it's effective. From a weight loss point of view, that doesn't mean it's so it's not a magic. It's not a magic formula. They've done studies on it that if you from a weight loss point of view only, I'm talking about, they've done studies whereby if you like eat the same amount of calories in a 6 hour window as you do in a 12 hour window, the outcome is pretty much the same from that point of view, because as long as you're controlling the amount you're consuming, then there's no real difference. So there is no conclusive scientific factual evidence that says that fasting will help you lose weight better than any other method that allows you to restrict and contain your food intake, whether it's over 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. Okay, so that doesn't mean it's not a good option though for some people. For some people it will be a great option, others it won't. So it just depends. If you are going to do it though, the main drawback would be when you are in your eating window, you need to make sure you're getting enough of everything. At the end of the day, your body needs a certain amount of vitamins, needs a certain amount of, as I've said, protein, etc. So you need to make sure that you're getting those things in within the window in order for your body to continue to feel energized, to be able to perform at sessions, to be able to perform athletically in any way. So there's a lot of wee things to consider there. I think the key thing I've learned over the years is to not put any one thing on any one person. We all do it. We all make mistakes and put things on pedestals, whether it's a approach to exercise or an approach to nutrition. Ultimately, all we can do is kind of success leaves clues at the end of the day, and then we can like see scientifically what makes sense based on like outcomes and based on what we know. And that's why for me, like, weight training is the most obvious thing that most people should be doing, for example, or prioritising, because losing strength and losing muscle is the defining characteristic of the aging process past the age of about 35, 40 with it. So if you intervene, you're kind of slowing down, or in some ways actually pausing that aging process, that physical aging process. And that's just the way it works. That's just fact based on what we know about what happens to the muscles. So that's all. I don't want to start talking about that now. I just thought I'd mention the fasting thing, and it may or may not be of help. But anyway, cheers.